TOA community. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Robert Linkul with trainingtheolderadult.com. I hope everybody's doing well. I want to talk to you about a new study that just came out. Real quick before I get started, I wanted to give a little shout out to Fit Body Forever. Look at that. They sent me a personalized card. Look at that chubby guy in there. That's me with 176. We had confirmed 176 trainers on the floor. A huge shout out and thank you for sharing your knowledge, passion, expertise with our entire brand at this World Conference. While you only had the opportunity to invest 6 hours with our team, your impact will be felt for years to come. We appreciate everything you gave and can't thank you enough for what you have shared with us. Thank you for making 2023 the best, etc., etc. Much gratitude. The entire Fit Body Boot Camp headquarters and family. How cool is that? So, Fit Body family and all of you out there, thank you very much. This was very cool. Again, one of the highlights of my career. Okay, gang, let's talk about this. So, this is my favorite topic. You know, I love sarcopenia. It's the thing that I want. Number one, when you hear sarcopenia, I hope you think of me. Number two, when you think of sarcopenia or when you hear that word, I hope you hear mortal enemy, enemy number one. Like this is our greatest concern as fitness professionals, as human beings generally, because sarcopenia starts to take effect into the body. I mean, we're seeing sarcopenic cases in the teens, gang. Basically, kids that grow up that don't do anything but sit in front of their computer and physically do not move all day long are becoming sarcopenic into their late teens. So this is a problem. This is a big problem. And I love this study. It's very deep, so we are going to dive into that. I am going to reference a couple of others. I've got all of them linked in the description below, so you can go and look at them all, because the numbers are a little bit different sometimes, okay? So anyhow, exercise for sarcopenia in older people, a systematic review and network meta-analysis. Basically, that means they're looking at multiple different cases and kind of coming down with one major study they're looking at, but they're looking at other research as well to see if this is correct. So, in geriatric research clinical settings, sarcopenia is a major public health issue among older adults. The prevalence of sarcopenia increases with age, ranging from 5 to 13% in those age 60 to 70. That number, this is what I want to talk to you about here in the beginning, that number plus the 11 to 50% when you go over 80, okay? That number, I have found like, 3 or 4 different ranges where it's between 20 and 25% for that first one, and then between 50 to 55+% for the other. So I went around and just looked at a couple different, now we'll come back to this here in just a moment, right? But I went and I looked at a couple other ones, and here you go. Okay, this they agreed here between 5 and 13% of those 60, and then 11 to 50%. So they agreed on this one. Again, I have all these linked in the description. Here's another one. They came in here with the 1.5. So every year of age after 50, you start to lose 1% of your body mass and your muscular mass. And then after 60, it's 3% and so on. They went all the way up. But again, there's the 5 to 13 right here. On average, it's estimated between 5 and 13, 70-year-olds, and then 11 to 50. So consistency there, right? And then another one here. Here's 11% in men, 9% in women who are community dwelling. So that was interesting. 23% in men, 24% in women who are hospitalized, 51% in men, 31% in women who are in nursing homes. So basically, those three really showing individuals that are in the disability threshold, meaning they are reliant on someone else to take care of them, which is community dwelling. Well, I guess that doesn't necessarily mean that they are dependent on someone else if they're community dwelling. That means that they're living amongst their peers, and they typically have someone there with them that could be called on if they need it, right? But the other two, hospitalized, definitely, nursing home, definitely, okay? So we see the numbers there definitely growing. Older age, female gender, lower education, low socioeconomic status, being underweight, and low birth weight are all associated with higher likelihood of sarcopenia. Wow. First time I've read that one. And then one more here. On average, individuals with sarcopenia have a 58% higher percent higher risk of fracture than people without the condition. The risk of disability is 1.5 to 4.5 times higher in older adults with sarcopenia than in those without the condition. So they're, again, looking at the risk of fracture. And then people with sarcopenia have a 13% increased risk of dependency in their activity to daily living, ADLs, compared to those with similar age without the condition. So really, the whole point, the whole reason I wanted to kind of look at all those numbers was, let's find a consistent number in here, and then we're going to get new input, new information soon, I'm hoping. Every other overview of this content has come out every 3 to 4 years. So the last consistent numbers we had were in 2020, right before the pandemic. So I'm hoping, we're almost to 2024 here, I'm hoping we get some new information where some of these stats are updated because, as I say in every video, I personally feel like the pandemic, I don't want to say doubled these numbers because obviously that would be 100% for the older folks, but I think it drastically increased because everyone just sat down for 2 weeks, right? Everybody. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything. Flatten the curve, 2 weeks. Then some people started to do a little bit more, but not much, right? Another month. A lot of folks sat around and didn't exercise and didn't go anywhere and didn't do anything for 12 to 36 months. Okay? So if you think that didn't affect, knowing that sarcopenia takes effect in as little as 10 days, right? If you don't think that took effect and has a issue across the board, then I don't know what to tell you. All right, so let's dive into this here. We are going to take a little bit deeper look at exactly what this research article went through. Sarcopenia is a serious public health concern among older adults. Worldwide, exercise is the most common intervention for sarcopenia. This study aimed to compare the effectiveness of different exercise types for older adults with sarcopenia. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of graphs here in a minute that looks at those things. So basically, they want to know what is the best type of exercise to help someone with sarcopenia overcome it. Like, what is the best combo or what is the best single thing to look at? So they do these randomized controlled trials. So there's more details on that. But basically, they had almost 6,000 citations that reviewed 3,700 participants, average age 73 years old. Okay. And they did a 12-week review with them, et cetera, going through all of these different options with them. Right. And so they took a deeper look into this. I want to show you, this is just kind of some blown up parts of this. What they were testing for was, number one, what made somebody improve their quality of life via, if their quality of life is poor because of sarcopenia, what helped improve quality of life performance. And they did that via a daily assessment of, how do you feel? And how good of a quality of life do you feel you have right now on a 1 to 10 scale or something along those lines, some kind of RPE, rate of perceived exertion, right? Now, on the other side, it was performance-based. And so they used different variables with that. The exercise program options were resistance training, aerobics, balance training, multiple components, combos of all those, and then also discuss nutrition. Okay, now they used a couple different things to test for this, including strength outputs, basically assessing them on machines or on their lifts, their body fat mass, their hand grip strength, their knee extension strength, their gait speed, timed up and go across the board, right? And so the findings with this are pretty cool, and we'll kind of review the final discussion of it. But this shows you the highest results were in blue, the moderate results in green, lowest were in, let's call that pink, and then very low were like red, I guess you would call that, or dark red. And basically they looked at if you just did aerobics, how did everybody do? If you just did resistance training, if you did resistance training with aerobics, resistance training with aerobics and balance, resistance with aerobics and a nutrition plan, resistance with just balance, resistance with a plan and nutrition, and then resistance plan with nutrition. And through all of that, right? And they also took like deeper looks into all-cause mortality, et cetera, have all these different reviews, all the stats. Again, I don't know exactly how to go into all the numbers and tell you what all these schemes are. I just wanted to show you. Again, I read these reviews and I try to interpret it as best I can. But again, I don't personally understand a lot of how the numbers are accrued and how they come together. That's not my job as the researcher. I'm not a researcher. I am a fan of research that reads this and then takes that information and helps create a plan that puts it into action. So in here, in conclusion, high or moderate certainty evidence shows that resistance exercise with or without nutritional intervention, and the combination of resistance training with balance or aerobic exercise are most effective interventions for improving quality of life in older adults. So basically, resistance training with anything else across the board pretty much made quality of life better for everybody. Okay, like everyone felt better doing more. That's basically across the board. What made you feel better? Resistance training and any of the other stuff. Any combo, everybody made significant improvements, either moderate to high improvements. Okay, now on the performance side, adding nutrition interventions for exercise has had the largest effect on hand grip strength for exercise alone, shown in similar effects of physical function measures of exercise alone. Moderate certainty evidence shows that adding balance training to resistance exercise was the most effective intervention for improving physical function. Okay, the findings can be used to guide the optimal exercise performance program and improving patient important outcomes among older adults with sarcopenia. So, finding that the introduction of balance training with resistance exercise was basically the most effective way to improve their performance. Okay, it improved their timed up and go, their grip strength, all the other assessments we talked about. So if we're looking at an emotional response, an affective improvement, an emotional trust value, etc., it was resistance training, anything else. Okay, just the addition of all that, it produced really well. But on the other side, if you wanted this to truly be performance based, it was resistance training and the addition of balance. And so the balance components they put into there are very similar to what we do in that there's staggered stance positions, there's inline stance positions, you're changing depth perception from one eye being closed to the other. They did a lot of that stuff. What they didn't do is just stand and balance on one foot, okay? Because we've talked about that in the past where standing and balancing on one foot does one thing. It gets you better at standing and balancing on one foot, which falls do not occur from the standing on one foot position. Like if we were flamingos, maybe things would be a little bit different as they spend like half their life on one foot, right? Or some shit. I'm making that up. But my point being is we are usually in transit. We are usually moving, locomotively moving somewhere, and then we fall down. It's extremely rare we fall from just a standing still position. We're almost always in motion for it, okay? So it wouldn't really make any sense to just stand on one foot and go, oh, I'm getting better at balance. Technically, you are getting better at balancing on one foot, but not where you really need it. So that's where the resistance training component with the addition of balance into this. So the example would be this. I'm doing a seated row, okay, seated row machine or a cable pulley, let's say. So I'm sitting down on a chair and I'm pulling the rowie, pulling towards myself here, right? Doing this guy. Now, if I were to do that same exercise, but stand up, I would now have a ground reaction contact to the floor via my feet that would make a more counter of my body weight, inertia, balance and coordination and stability recruitment of my body to counter the load that I'm pulling, but keep me upright, okay? And the whole time in the back of my mind, my brain's going, if this cable snaps, you need to not flop onto the back of your head. But the cable's not going to snap. How are we going to counter this load and not get yanked forward when we go to return the weight? So you learn how to lower your center of mass, split your base a little bit, right? Make things a little bit wider. Counter by leaning your body against it as you row. Now, if we're doing that with even bilateral feet, right foot, left foot, shoulder width apart, if I stagger my feet, right, let's say 6 inches, and I perform that same thing, I should feel more stable because I'm getting a wider base. And then if I go a little further and a little further, and eventually I get 3 feet between my feet, so I'm standing like I would in a lunge. Well, now I'm in a position to be really stable and bracing against this pulley as I counter and row. But all the while, I'm resistance training, but I'm also increasing my base, my balance, my stability. If I take those feet that are split 3 feet apart and I start to bring them closer together like I'm on a balance beam, right? Still 3 foot apart, but on a balance beam, well, now I'm increasing more balance and recruitment while I'm doing my resistance training. You see what I'm talking about? The idea here isn't to do resistance and then balance training. It's to do resistance and balance training combined in one. And that's how and why we want people off, their butts, not seated while performing the majority of their lifts, if at all, none of them. I'd rather people be up and doing rather than either laying down or sitting in a chair or on a bench. Now, there are times and places for that, like with a sit to stand. Or if you're trying to reduce the amount of stability and work on something else, then you could sit down and do so. If there's an injury, if there's a limitation, something like that. I'm not saying we have to do this all the time. Just this is how you could really maximize, in my opinion, this information. Is number one, the person on average is 73 years old. Clock's ticking, man, right? Like, this is not a person we can take our time with and go, hey, let's play the long game. We're going to spend the next 10 years turning you into a dynamic athlete. We can baby step. You're 83 in 10 years. 1 foot's in the grave. Okay, I don't mean to be dramatic, but statistically at 73, you're already knocking on the door if you're not in good shape. Okay, so if you've made it to 83 at this point, we don't have 10 years to dick around with us. You got to get strong, because sarcopenia could kill you. Okay, it is a disease. 2016 declared a disease. So we have to do something drastic. But if we're too drastic, then we can injure you. We can end up going backwards, making things worse than they were. We don't want that. So basically, we get to a position where it's like, how can we best maximize this information, okay, and implement it in a way where we're gradually taking steps forward, somewhat aggressively, but gradually, without taking any missteps, no injuries. Okay, no prolonged vacations, nothing that, I tweaked my back, I'm going to take the next 3 weeks off, and we got to start all over again. Neuromuscularly, we don't. Once people learn patterns, you're already ahead of the game. I know how to do a step up. I know how to do a clean. I know how to do a get up. They learn those patterns. That's great, and that stuff's in there for a while. It's kind of like riding a bike. You just need to tune up, and then you're good. Okay. What I mean is the actual muscle engagement, the actin and myosin, the two ends of the muscle, recruiting to be able to move a certain load. 10 days, we're already going backwards. We're losing 5% of your muscle mass gone, okay, after 10 days of just sedentary sitting on your butt. So if that's going to happen to the average age individual, what's happening to a 73-year-old who's deconditioned, undertrained, undermuscled, undernourished, underslept, under everything? How is that individual going to train for a little bit, start to do well? Hey, I kind of tweaked my back. Let me take 3 weeks off. You're starting all over again. All that time we put in the beginning for naught. So you need to take progressive, small, consistent baby steps. And every workout has got to check multiple boxes. Are we resistance training, stability training, power training, balance training, coordination, agility, mobility, flexibility, conditioning, right? Warm up, cool down, etc., all that good stuff. You got a lot of things to check off every day if you can, the majority of those. Older adults are not in season, postseason, preseason, championship season. We don't have off seasons. They're on in season, prime time, all the time. We have to go now. How do we use this information to do that? We know at the core root of their success is what? Resistance training. If there's ever a time where you need evidence to show someone, how can you start to improve muscle mass, bone density, improve your quality of life, emotional response, improve your performance, physical response? It's resistance training and blank. Fill it in. Whatever else, whatever other thing you want to do, it's resistance training and. That's the answer. Okay? And now, if I want to implement this on a regular basis, protocols, etc., I've made videos on all that stuff too. If you ever have to argue with somebody on, is this the most efficient route? Should I really lift weights? Am I going to get too bulky? I have yet to see a single individual naturally ever get too bulky. Anyone. You may be male, female, you may have never trained, you may have started to lift weights and you didn't like that your shoulders got bigger, okay? Any unwatered plant will grow when you water it. But at some point, that plant goes, this is as big as I'm supposed to be. My little ficus plant outside, Seth, he's been with me since college. Little tiny guy. I planted him. He grew a little bigger. He grew a little bigger. Now he's about my size. That's as big as Seth gets. He won't get any bigger. No matter how much I water him, no matter what, that's what he's supposed to be. So that's what resistance training does to any body. As you implement it into your regular practice, your body will become what it's meant to be. And in some of you, male or female, you might have bigger shoulders. You might get bigger thighs. That's the difference between being a endomorph, me, a ectomorph, Keegan, okay? Skinnier, runner, distance, good, okay? Not a ton of power and strength. Me, endomorph, bigger, fatter, can be thicker, more strength, more power, not great endurance, okay? Now, I'm not saying that's everybody. There are plenty of, tweeners, but right in the middle of that is the mesomorph. And that's where you look at an ideal body like a Mark Wahlberg, like a Hugh Jackman, okay? You look at some of those bodies like a Chris Hemsworth, and you're like, man, they look great. Arnold is a classic. He's like a meso-endo. He had a lot of size, but still had that small little waist. I don't have a waist like that. Even if I'm down to 100, 200 pounds, my waist is still 36 inches, and I'm built like a brick shithouse, like literally straight down. There's no curvature. There's no hourglass to me at all. The only way I can make my waist smaller is to get my lats and shoulders bigger, right? That's how I'm built. As you water that body, that's what it becomes. There's no point in us fighting that. So number one is be okay with it. Be okay with whatever your body. Resistance training is going to help you. Article after article after article, no matter what it is, performance, looks, disease, health, and anything, whatever it is you're trying to improve, resistance training at its core is going to help you get there faster than anything else. So find a way to lift weights, resistance, anything that you like, however you want to do it. Group, one-on-one, semi-private, classes, whatever. You got to have resistance. You have to have resistance. In my opinion, bands only go so far. You need to have some kind of consistent heavy load in hand at some point. Okay, bands are great. They'll do a good job. However, you got to have some consistent load in hand at some point. That's my opinion, okay? Now, outside of that, whatever your other interests are, okay, plug those in to assist you. Got to find a way to do some resistance training in a way that you like it, and that will help you achieve these goals. Now, you may not enjoy it. I look forward to it every day, but that's a mentality and a mindset we have. Some people are just like, I don't like doing this, but I know it's good for me. And that's the second part. You got to keep coming back. You have to, what's the Alcoholics Anonymous part of the thing is like I'm going to screw it up, but it's like the system will work if you work it. Like there's a saying they have, something like that. And this is the same thing. Like if you this system works, it will work if you work it. You got to keep coming back. You have to stay consistent. You have to keep doing it. Okay? We have something called the arthritic grace period. And what that is a period of time where your body, when you start resistance training, the arthritis can have little flare-ups and get aggravated. But if you just keep training with it, okay, it'll get better. Your body will adapt to the idea of like, well, this is me now. This is what I do now. Instead of having these flare-ups where I'm miserable and painful all the time, I need to adapt, and the body will adapt. It's growing calluses, right, for your arthritis, more or less. If I'm going to continue to grab rough things with my hands, I need gloves. I'm not putting on gloves, so I'll build my own. That's a callus. If I'm going to lift weights with arthritis and do all these movements, right, then I'm going to have to learn the body will adapt to the idea of this is what we do now. And 94 to 97% reported increase in quality of life, increase in performance. Like even the ones that the 4 to 6%, whatever that other bit is, those individuals just said nothing really changed. It didn't get worse. It just didn't get better. So 94 to 96% of the folks out there that resistance trained went through that grace period, which can be 2 to 12 weeks. It's a big window. Okay. Everybody's different. But you go through that, your quality of life will improve. So this is that same thing for fitness. If you have arthritis or you don't, there's a grace period. They have to work the system. It will work if you keep working it. Consistency is key. And if you just keep coming, just keep doing it, just keep swimming, if you just keep doing this, right, you will be successful. You will reap the benefits of this effort that you put in. But here's the last part. You have to continue to challenge yourself. And what that means is we have something called the SAID principle, specific adaptations to an imposed demand. Your body will not specifically adapt if there's not an imposed demand, which means when I grab my water bottle and I lift it up and down, this is not an imposed demand. It's a demand, but my body is so used to this, I could do 1 billion of these, right? Because it's not an imposed demand. There's no overload for me. There's no challenge there that my body's like, I don't normally do this. There's no reason for me to respond or grow because I do that all the time. Okay? So that's where it's like, well, Rob said I got to go lift. And so you get in there and you're just moving 20 pounds on everything. Well, as soon as 20 pounds isn't hard anymore, you got to go up. Or you need to change some other variables. I can go on a huge rant on that, but tempo of the lifts. Do you slow it down? Do you speed it up? There's all kinds of different stuff you can do. Point is you have to continue to challenge yourself because you can get frustrated starting into something and going, I'm seeing changes, and then it gets stagnant. Well, I don't want to lift heavier. I don't want to get hurt. Who says you're going to get hurt? Well, heavier lifting always ends in injuries. That's absolutely not true. That's 100% not true. People hurt themselves moving their body weight around on the ground. There's more injuries in yoga than there are in weightlifting, the sport of weightlifting, where they are maximizing how much they can lift once. There's more injuries in yoga, moving your body weight around on the ground, than there is in the sport where you're the max load. So don't tell me you're going to get hurt because it's heavier. That is absolutely incorrect. There's a common misconception, and this is something that all the doctors out there like to say, is that you're going to hurt your back, you're going to throw out your back, you're going to hurt your shoulder, don't lift too heavy. What they mean is don't lift more than you actually can. That's what they mean. So if you start to build up to a point, and we have this really cool little system where if you can pick up this weight 10 times, then you could do a little bit heavier one 8 times, and a little heavier one 6 times, and a little heavier one 4 times. We can go through that system where I know you can lift it. I'm not going to ask you to lift the one you can only lift 4 times, 10 times, then you would get hurt. Just like anything else. If you overdo it, if you don't follow progressions, if you don't listen, if you don't do recoveries, etc., you can get injured. So don't let that stop you either. This was a giant soapbox, 30 minutes, but I hope you enjoyed it. Any comments, questions, as always, feel free to hit me up down below. Check out these articles. Tell me what you think. We see these numbers on the rise. I love seeing new research. This just came out in April 2023, showcasing that once again, at the heart of all of our success in our pursuits of improving our mind and our body is resistance training. I cannot beg you, plead you, encourage you, ask you, pray for you to get out there and introduce resistance training to your life, because I know what it did for me. I know what it did for my dad. I know it does for all of my loved ones that participate in it. I know the power of this. So please get out there, get inspired, find a variation, a form of resistance training that works for you. Commit to it. The system will work if you work it. Keep coming back. Much love and appreciation to all of you. As always, continue to fight your good fight against sarcopenia, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.